So chaps, having gone through the Wave 2 release, there's a couple of things I just wanted to call out around project operations. Something we do quite a lot out here at Delaware, and I know certainly the folks at home would probably appreciate understanding a little bit more. The first one was actually around now actually having a proper modern mobile app for actually doing your expenses. I know, as most of us know, some of the folks back home know, there used to be the mobile app experience for F&O. Wasn't the greatest experience, but now what Microsoft have got coming out around having a truly modern power app that allows you to actually take and submit your expenses, I think is going to be quite beneficial for obviously us in our day-to-day work, but more importantly for our customers and clients back home as well.
And is that using the AI technology?
Yeah, so what Microsoft are doing is leveraging the wider Azure stack, and in particular the AI Builder, the form recognition capability to basically allow you to take the picture of your receipt from your phone. It'll automatically read that, understand who the supplier is, the amount, and so forth, and then just really prompt you just to fill out the last few missing bits of information, whether or not it's a taxi receipt or a train receipt, and then allowing you to seamlessly submit that through for payment.
And that's, I assume, on any receipt that you could have.
Yes, exactly, and also works across both iOS as well as Android as well.
Nice.
Sounds like quite a big step forward.
I think so. Yeah, and actually the other thing is, from what I can infer from the Wave 2 release notes, the expense app's coming out in March, and I understand from Microsoft that there'll be a time sheet entering capability that'll be added shortly thereafter as well.
Fantastic. Was there anything else in Project Ops?
Yeah, there's quite a few things, but I guess the one that calls out, because we see this quite a lot with our customers, is actually when you're doing fixed price projects, the current version allows you to do milestone-based payments. So in effect, you set your project up, you've got your milestones defined, and you can obviously invoice that on that basis. What they're now introducing with Phase 2 is actually the ability to have a more granular schedule of billing that's based on progress of work rather than just fixed points in time. So I think that would be quite beneficial for a number of our professional services type customers.
One of the other exciting areas that we saw that came out of Microsoft Build and is currently in preview is the Power Pages that was released by Microsoft. And it's an extension of the existing Power Portals, but has extra versatility from a business-centric perspective to allow users to easily create websites that are driven by data that comes from a variety of different sources. And it's been specifically designed so that it's not only is it template driven, so that we're able to easily create a website and keep the colours and all the pictures all the way through, but it also has the ability to easily add content to it, as well as if you are a more seasoned veteran of writing HTML or JavaScript, the ability to go in and make those kind of changes. So on the one hand, it's like a kind of content management system that is straightforward, it's drag and drop. There is a lovely interface to use, but also you can use the tools to actually Visual Studio to actually write code and put that on the Power Pages as well.
And just thinking about our customers and our clients, what sort of skills would their teams need to have in order to sort of bring this to life and develop this?
Yeah, so Microsoft are coming up with the concept of a fusion team. So what they're talking about here is it's three distinct roles. Right. So you have an administrator. So this would be someone who is effectively looking to administer the site, make sure that security, adding users, various other bits and pieces. You have the Power Pages maker. So this is someone who actually goes in and creates the templates and the pages and makes sure that the content is correct. And then you also have the kind of the pro developer, someone who has the skill set to do the more fancy things you would be looking to do on the website. And that triangle of people is the fusion team that Microsoft are looking to put in place.
Oh wow!
And how easy is it actually to use?
It's really easy to use. Microsoft have gone that extra mile to put tools in place. So you could, for example, have a website designed as a PDF. There are Figma is one of the online tools that it's also integrates with. But they also say as well that you could get a piece of paper and you could draw out your plan for your website and you upload it and it uses the AI to create that website for you.
Wow.
Fantastic. Okay, and one thing that I found particularly interesting in the latest release relates to the finance side of things. As you both know, I used to be an accountant, which is why I found it particularly exciting. As we all know, already in the product, we've got your month-end checklist, which will help you really organise the month-end and streamline the amount of time it takes to close. We've also got the reconciliation functionality for our sub-ledgers like AP, AR, fixed assets and so on to the nominal ledger. But there are still some elements of finance where we are manually controlling our balance sheet, and people sometimes go out to like third-party solutions to assist with that. We're in the latest release, or coming in the latest release rather, we've got the concept of automated ledger settlements. Now these quite normally, it's an underrated function because it's quite a manual task to select the items that you want to net off against each other. With the automated ledger settlements, we've got the capability for the users to write specific rules to net debits and credits, which should strip out several hours out of a month-end process, and the rules are completely controlled by the user. So again, that's a big step forward, I think, in terms of that month-end process, which might not be exciting to everyone, but certainly to the finance users out there, hopefully that's going to ring true.
Well, I'm sure that most of our finance users know that month-end process runs into days, and anything that's going to kind of condense that down has got to be good.
Absolutely. And there's another feature as well that really interested me was financial tags. So we all know you can have an unlimited number of financial dimensions, but of course there's an overhead to that in terms of the month-end processing, year-end processing, and so on. And it can be quite restrictive and constraining that you have to think through what you want that structure to be. With financial tags, these are user-created tags you can add to transactions with less structured information that can speed up your sort of analysis.
So that's quite interesting. I mean, what would be a typical use case of where you would use those?
Yeah, good question, Tim. I mean, segueing it back to, or linking it to the ledger settlement piece, what you could do, you could tag payment transactions, for instance, and use that to speed up ledger settlements as well.
And aid the reconciliation process.
Yeah,
perfect.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Another interesting feature I happened to notice was actually the new vendor OCR capability that Microsoft are bringing out later in the year. As we know, but obviously some of our customers will know, we've had the basic capability to process an electronic invoice through an automated process from matching to delivery notes through to invoice matching in terms of tolerances and then pushing that through an automated process to get paid. Well, what we've been lacking is the part at the beginning of the process, which is the conversion of that supplier invoice into a form that Dynamics can actually read and interpret. Really chuffed to see that actually they're now bringing that out later in the year. It'll allow you to basically push that through a designated mailbox. That engine will then read that invoice from the supplier, convert that into a format that F&O can read, pump it into F&O, and then the standard vendor invoice automation functionality can pick that up and then process that through to the end.
Is that using the same OCR technology in the expenses you mentioned earlier?
Exactly right. I think this is good to see and really pleasing to see Microsoft starting to really lean and stretch on the broader capability they have within the Azure platform, particularly around form recognition and AI and things like that. And yes, it's under the covers, it's using that same capability. On the expense side, it was actually obviously reading an expense photograph that you've taken and reading the relevant information from that. In this scenario, it's actually reading a supplier invoice, reading the relevant information, and then submitting that through to Dynamics for processing.
I'm assuming as well that because it's using the same technology, that actually our customers could be saving money here by encapsulating that under one service.
So Andy, you actually raised a good point, because funny enough, I was reading a recent survey, and what they discovered was actually if you can fully digitise the invoice processing, there's about an 85% cost saving in processing of supplier invoices, which for a large organisation can actually amount to quite a significant amount of money. And the other part, I guess, also in the same survey, they were touched on the fact that about 80 to 81% of organisations have experienced in some shape or form accounts payable fraud, whether or not that's internal or external influences. So by having a fully automated process makes a significant inroad in removing that risk and reducing the cost impact of that fraud.
Fantastic. Well, I guess from a user perspective as well, the AP clerks, all they're going to see is that the exceptions that need to be managed rather than having to...
Exactly right. I mean, and that's really what you're trying to get to is, let the system do the heavy lifting. The stuff that matches, the stuff that's in the tolerances, it's already been approved, push that through to automatic payment, and therefore just have the AP clerks focus on the thing they need to focus on, which is the exceptions.
Fantastic.
Nice. And it's quite interesting. I mean, you're talking there about some of the kind of cutting edge type technologies from Microsoft. But I've been having a look at some of the technologies that we're using to integrate with some of the older applications that our customers have. I mean, we all have legacy applications that we're having to deal with. And one of the ways that Microsoft worked hard to give us the tools around is to use the Power Automate desktop version.
Okay.
which allows robotic process automation. And with that process in place, it means that we can use either web-based or application-based on a Windows-based machine. We can use that and get information, get the automate to put the information directly into the application. Now that's been around for a while, but Microsoft have pushed that a little bit further so that we can now have those in cloud hosted environments as opposed to environments locally on site. And that gives us the extra versatility there of being able to manage the cost of what those would be. Mm-hmm. And obviously we can turn those machines on and off as we see fit. But the extensions that Microsoft have brought here means that if there are resources that Automate needs on the local networks back in the office, mm-hmm. It will have access to those from the virtual environments.
Excellent. From an ease of use perspective, I guess that just makes that whole process a lot easier for our clients to engage with.
Absolutely, and the security as well around those, which has always been a little bit of a bugbear, because generally when the machines, the virtual machines were turned on, the Automate was being run, the local login would be stored locally. We now have the options to store those within the Azure Vault, so that we can ensure that any of the administrators who would be looking after these systems are not getting views into passwords that they shouldn't be able to.
Interesting.
Fantastic. I think that's a really good point as well, about how Microsoft are now leveraging that wider stack a lot more. It's being built more into the functionality that's available. I noticed in the release notes that they're doing other areas as well, in terms of, if we look at customer service now, we've now got chatbots interacting with the customer service piece to make that a lot easier, particularly around commerce customer service. With the sales functionality as well, we've got the whole piece of using customer conversation intelligence rather, and that sort of leverages a lot of the functionality you see with Teams. We're all used to using Teams now and seeing meetings transcribed. Well, if you think about a sales role, quite often some of our salespeople can sometimes struggle to keep the notes they should to help us really understand what's going on and feed that through into the operations side of the business. Whereas with conversation intelligence now, those meetings are transcribed automatically, and again Microsoft are leveraging their own AI to pull out key phrases and terms that are brought up to really help sort of drive the business to actually understand what our customers are after. So it's great that Microsoft is starting to build a lot more. They're really bringing all the stack together to interact.
Okay, and I believe I read somewhere as well that Viva is something that they looking to promote?
Yeah, I don't know. Viva in and of itself is quite an exciting feature, isn't it? You've just seen that we've got Viva Goals have come out, which can help us with our employee development and so on. But yeah, certainly with HR, for instance, now that's now starting to work more with Viva. So from an employee perspective, you've got that single experience of updating your sort of employee profile, and that flows all the way through. And that flow continues on to things like resource planning with our professional services clients, as we were mentioning earlier, on Project Ops. You've now got that sort of seamless view of your resource planning can be utilising very easily the sort of employee details that start in HR. So it's all just knitting together really, really nicely with this latest release.
And you mentioned there about Viva Goals actually, because I was looking at it the other day, and what I love about that is the fact you can now, within the context of teams, within the context of doing your work, you can actually very crisply and very clearly define not only your organisational objectives or your team objectives, but your personal objectives, but crucially see how what you do as an individual rolls up into supporting your team's objectives and how those roll up into supporting your overall objectives, and gives you that complete transparency all the way through, and rather elegantly gives you a really nice user experience on how you can then track and report and monitor progress against those goals. So yeah, it's really pleasing to see those things starting to really come together as a cohesive application platform.
Yeah, really exciting times.
Yeah, and Microsoft do seem to be pushing quite hard to give all of their business systems to be under one umbrella, so they interact and speak to each other. So whether you're using Teams and Outlook, Word and Excel, or any of the ERP systems, they're all now really tightly focused to give us a continuous single view of the world.